I would love to get your sense of kind of the state of the union for marketing sales alignment.
I wish I had $1 for every marketer and salesperson who came to me and said they're having a challenge with their counterpart in sales or marketing. Unfortunately, it really hasn't gotten a whole lot better. There are little pockets of improvement, but for the most part, you talk to marketers and they don't really feel they're on the same page with sales. The sales team has a very short-term focus, trying to close things this quarter. They're saying that marketing's not giving me what I need, even to the point where they're not looking at the same data. And so the sales team says, I'm not getting leads from marketing. Marketing is saying we're delivering lots of leads, and they can't even have closure and transparency on what the numbers are. So where I'd love to say the state of the union is excellent, the state of the union is not good. We're starting to see some improvements in some areas, some companies really making a concerted effort to do it. But basically, it's not a great area.
If you were to advise a chief sales officer or a chief marketing officer who wanted to get started, I'd like to ask you just kind of some thoughts you might share with them. For instance, if they wanted to get started, what steps or phases should that executive use or follow when they plan out the marketing sales alignment process?
Yeah, you used a really great term, the sales and marketing alignment process. So it is a process, and the process starts with collaboration between the head of sales and head of marketing, doing first common definitions. So what is a marketing qualified lead, an MQL? What is a sales accepted lead? What is a sales qualified opportunity? And very often that's the beginning of the conflict if they don't have a common set of definitions of what those are. And by the way, coming up with those definitions, Steve, it's not something that's done in a half hour or a couple of hours. It can take a long time, because if you ask a salesperson, what is a sales-ready lead? They may say a couple things, but it takes a while to work that all through. So you want to have common definitions. So that's where it starts. Number two, after you have common definitions, you understand what is the flow. When do leads get passed to sales? Most organizations are following a serious decisions waterfall and conversion sort of set of metrics. So it starts with a marketing qualified lead, that there's some sort of behavioral and some sort of qualifying event, either the company name or the industry or the revenues, or they do something on the website through marketing automation, becomes an MQL, a marketing qualified lead. And then the sales team or an inside salesperson would then call that lead and qualify them and try to set up an appointment. And once the appointment's set up, it's a sales accepted lead. And then they have that meeting that takes place. And if it moves forward, it becomes a sales qualified opportunity, SQO. And a great practice is really look at the conversion rates at each stage and see how that's doing with benchmarks from other companies, and Serious Decisions is good at having those benchmarks, and also historical performance. So you can really identify where the problems are. Are we getting lots of MQLs at the top of the funnel, but they're not converting high in the funnel? Or we're getting lots of opportunities, but we don't have a good win rate. So you have to understand where the issues and problems are.
Let's move on to inhibitors. What are the biggest mistakes you have seen that negatively impact the marketing sales alignment?
It's so interesting at the end of a quarter to talk to the salesperson, how did the quarter go, and ask the head of marketing how the quarter went. And you'd think that in most companies, they would kind of feel the same way about the quarter. But I've seen companies where the head of sales has their head down, they didn't hit the sales number, the bookings number, and the marketing team's doing high fives. Wow, look, we hit our MQLs, we hit our lead number. And that's just wrong. So what I've seen from many companies, both my experience at Eloqua, at Forrester Research, and Reed Elsevier, is the best way to have alignment is for the head of marketing and head of sales to have the same goal. And the goal should probably be closed business. Very often you'll see that the head of sales has closed business or bookings as their target, but marketing has some measure of leads, even opportunities. And that's not the right way to do it, because we all know you can just create leads. A lead could be a name in a phone book, and if definitions aren't right. So what we did at Eloqua with my counterpart there, and we've done it at Forrester and other places, is totally line them up. The head of marketing, head of sales has exactly the same goal. What did you book this quarter? And it's very clear. So when they're doing high fives, everyone in marketing sales is doing high fives.
What are the most important metrics to track and review to ensure the alignment practices are healthy and on track?
Yeah, it's really important to have healthy practices and make sure you have the right metrics. So as I said, number one is bookings. So see if you're lined up on the bookings target. Number two is probably the number of opportunities generated, so sales qualified opportunities. And you ought to look at it two ways. You ought to look at it versus plan, because good companies have plans every quarter for how many opportunities, how much closed business. Also average deal size to see if the deal size is going up or down, to understand that. So, and then the last thing I would look at is conversion rates, which matters a lot. So conversion rates between each stage, between inquiry and MQL, MQL and SAL, SAL and opportunity and close. And the last thing I would look at, and I'll be guilty here because I'm a marketing guy, and that is I want to know whether the sales team is following up on the leads. And I had a very interesting situation a few years ago. I had a salesperson who was just killing the number, and but they weren't following up on the leads. And but those leads were part of his territory. And so I went to him and I said, "You're not following up the leads." And he says, "I'm killing my number anyway." So I went to the head of sales and I said, "I don't want to give any more leads to that person. I want to go somewhere else." And he was very comfortable with that. The salesperson was very angry. And so I sort of did remember the soup Nazi? No more soup for you. And what I ended up telling the salesperson is, no more leads for you. They're going to someone else who's going to follow up. So when I'm looking at my sales team, I do a 2x2 chart. One axis is the win rate, because I want salespeople who have higher win rates. And secondly, I want to know lead follow-up, so by each salesperson. And then in this 2x2, each dot is a salesperson. So I had a situation where a salesperson is working their butt off, and they're following up on every lead, but they don't have a good win rate. And so in that case, we train them. What are they doing? We did a lot of role-playing and so on. Now in the other situation, we had someone who was killing their number. They had a very high win rate, but they weren't following up on the leads. So that was a situation where we took some of the leads away from them and gave them to someone else. So it's important to look at both measures.
In terms of metrics that chief sales officers and chief marketing officers should be measured on and have their bonuses tied to, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I'd almost always recommend, Steve, quantitative measures. And so it's bookings would be number one, both tied to bookings. Marketers very often resist bookings. They say, well, the final stage of the sales function is the sales role responsibility. And I say that's not true, because it's really the quality of the leads. It is the references, very often reference programs put together by marketing. It's what content you have on the website. And lastly, it is really sales enablement. Have you given the sales team the right tools they need to close? And so I don't buy this argument that there's a handoff in the funnel, that marketing handles the top of the funnel and then sales handles the end. I think that the marketing team has to be continuous throughout the funnel. And actually, great marketing at the top of the funnel starts with good input from the sales team. So I love it when a salesperson tells me, here are the kind of things that people are nibbling on, or my prospects would love to see. So those are some of the issues.
Let's move on to growing the marketing sales alignment. What practices do you recommend implementing to foster marketing sales alignment?
A couple of things I've learned from my experience. I found that a great middle person in this process that can really help, believe it or not, is the CFO. Now, a lot of people don't like to get the CFO involved. I found the CFO can be very helpful. The CFO is kind of like the scorekeeper. And if you get the CFO involved in what the metrics should be and what the opportunities are and what is bookings, there's more buy-in to the whole process. So you want to be very transparent. So I've gotten the CFO to actually look at our metrics and see historical performance. And just like in tennis, you have the referee sort of calling what's on the line and what's not on the line. I have the CFO get involved to figuring out what the metrics are. And they're very, very helpful in the process. And it creates, rather than a sales versus marketing, you have this third person in the process, and their goal is to fairness, objectivity, and the rigor, the analytical rigor, to make sure that no one is sort of messing with the numbers. So we rely on the CFO to really produce the numbers every quarter.
And getting down to implementation, who should make up the marketing sales alignment team, and how should the collaborative unit work functionally?
Yeah. There are a couple of pieces that make everything work really well. The first is there has to be a dashboard that everyone can look at. And I call that one view of the truth. And that is sales doesn't come in with their numbers out of the CRM. Marketing comes with their numbers out of their marketing automation. And then finance shows up with a different set of numbers. Everyone's got to have the same set of numbers. So that requires some work, and that would be a reason to get the CFO involved. So you have one view of the truth. Everyone's looking at one set of numbers. So that's the best practice, and that should always be there. The second thing is you want to make sure that it's not just the head of marketing and sales, but clearly on the marketing side, the person who's running demand generation, very, very important. And in the case of sales, probably sales operations, because they understand behavioral issues, sales enablement, sales training, all those kind of things. Make sure salespeople are following up on the leads, people recording things properly in the CRM. So those are the two things you really need. One view of the truth, so you're all looking at a very transparent, real-time dashboard, not something in Excel and not something in PowerPoint, because we all know how those things mess around. So at any given point in time in the quarter, anybody can log in and see in real time what's going on in the funnel.
What do you see the trends for the coming year in marketing sales alignment?
Yeah, marketing sales alignment is in for quite a bit of change this year. And the reason is the confluence of several things going on at the same time. The first is you have a new generation of sales and marketing people that are sort of digital natives. They've grown up with digital technologies. It's not about the direct mail piece, about the trade show. They're much more digital natives and understand. The second is the technology's there to allow much better collaboration. On the sales side, much greater use of CRM, real-time CRM. And on the marketing side, we see marketing automation, real-time Google Analytics or Omniture or Web Trends. We see lots of new SaaS applications happening. So it's both the new generation of leadership and the technologies that will allow for much better alignment between sales and marketing. So I think if we've sort of seen, very slow improvements in sales and marketing alignment, I think 2013 is really being set up for a watershed year of tremendous acceleration in that area.